Rolling?
Rolling? Okay. Karunaji, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. We're really talking about the track record of the Modi government when it comes to women. What would you say are the main schemes? I know there are a lot of schemes, but if you were to identify one or two of the main schemes for women, and specifically, how has it transformed the lives of women?
Well, Mr. Jain, if I have to talk about the schemes announced by the Prime Minister and even implemented by the Prime Minister, perhaps the only differentiator from what I have seen earlier to now is that there has been an attempt to look at get a 360-degree view and also give wholesome solutions. So typically a woman's life is understood from the minute there's a fetus, a female child is conceived, right from that time to perhaps the time when a woman actually leaves her body. So there's been a entire spectrum of schemes right from that stage to the end stage. So very beautiful things have been introduced and women have been taken care of, I might say. And you asked about 2 or 3 things that perhaps made a difference. I'll give you on the spectrum what really made a difference. Well, the first one is when a female fetus is protected. If you know, historically India never had a sex ratio very well. It was always 931 or 946 females versus 1000 males. But now after Modi ji announced that female fetuses have to be protected and a girl child is very important, today our sex ratio is phenomenally high and it's so beautiful and glorious. Today it stands at 1021 girls to 1000 boys. So that's a clear indicator that the child is being protected, educated, etc. Now move a little further into the spectrum, the growth, a lot of National Nutrition Mission, which very beautifully I'd like to tell you has been announced earlier by the earlier government, but Modi government was so generous that it just did not remove that but fortified the whole scheme and started giving healthy nutrition, so children are growing very well. There's a lot of decrease in the stunting of children. Then we move on to the next stage, that is education, and women are getting highly skilled and trained. Even as we speak, a lot of women are getting trained in manufacturing. See, today at one time we never thought India was in manufacturing, but women are into assembly line production. They are making submarines, they are a part of the entire game. And the one that perhaps made an enormous difference to a woman's life is what is called as the low cost housing. So what our Prime Minister has done is he has constructed 4 crore homes, that is I think 40 million homes, and gave away to poor people. But he did something fantastic. He just did not give it away like that. He said the houses have to be registered on the woman's name. And when a house gets registered on a woman's name, we realize that there is a drop in the domestic violence. So today women feel empowered financially, women feel respected at home. So that made an enormous difference. And today women also have started participating in the startup ecosystem. So almost 45% of the startups today have at least one woman director. So phenomenal change, I can say, has happened under Modi ji.
Okay, those are some important gains, but there are some aspects in which overall there's an argument that women still lag behind in India. For example, in the Gender Development Index, which is actually the UN Gender Development Index, India is still at 127. India is still at 127 amongst 146 countries, so it's pretty low down.
Well, these gender indexes, as I know, in fact, I've been following, at the World Economic Forum, they do announce the gender gap, especially when boys and girls are compared against 4 parameters, that is education, health, economic participation and political empowerment. When you compare, I remember at the Economic Forum, typically they announce that whenever there's a wide gap, then women are not progressing. But I think if you look at all these four parameters today, women are seriously surging ahead as far as India is concerned. There are many indices, right? You know, people talk about this study, that study, but there is a qualitative change in India today. I remember when the World Hunger Index was published and India was, they said that India is not doing well. So many of us have written articles about it's such a complex formula to calculate hunger. I remember our India's Bibek Debroy has written, I have written, because these are certain indices that just cannot be, you know, prima facie established. If there is a qualitative change in a life of a woman, you can't capture it in numbers. So women are surging ahead very beautifully. So I'd rather not look at those numbers now.
Okay. The other number, okay, you say international, maybe it's complex, but if you look at the latest data for crimes against women, the National Crime Records Bureau, so they have actually found that the percentage of crimes has risen from 56.3 in 2014 to 66.4 in 2022.
Well, yeah, I do follow NCRB data very closely, and at times that data also disappoints me because it is true that in some areas the crime has surged a lot, but fundamentally, let me clarify this. I think the world is going through a certain type of a transition. As you know, in 2014 we never had the kind of access to, you know, pornography or, you know, all kinds of material, and today 10 years from then there's a lot of access, and the societal change also is there. There's a lot of substance abuse and mental health problems, etc. So I think as a society there has been a certain bit of deterioration, and it would have impacted in crime against women. So as I said, if but for our government's policies, perhaps it would have been even higher. I will tell you with certainty that Uttar Pradesh, if you look at how it was and how complicated a state it is, now today if you see, women are absolutely safe. I mean, I have experienced on ground because of certain schemes, protective schemes that have been announced in terms of apps, in terms of cameras, in terms of real life data that is streaming in, and punishment. The penal act is something that's very important today. So there has been a surge, I agree. I won't say a surge, there has been a little bit of increase in the crime and assault against women. But imagine if these checks were not put by my government or Modi ji's government, it would have perhaps been even worse because of the societal change and deterioration in the value system of the society.
Okay, the other question which is raised is when one talks about women and the BJP talks about empowering women, is that if you look at the percentage of representation of women in the party itself, only 14% of women MPs for a whole, country party like the BJP. That's very low, isn't it, ma'am?
Yes, yes and no. You know, personally, at a personal level, I would certainly want the number to go up. I would certainly like the number to go up. But again, if you see, look at the corporate representation. Again, you see that you don't find many women even in the private sector or the corporate offices itself. So when politics is not considered to be a game for everyone, like let's say, it's more like a boys' game, or to have women step in there needs a lot of personal initiative, family background, a push from government, perhaps a push from the party, perhaps. So I'm saying we are evolving, we are getting there. We could do better. We certainly could do better.
The other place where the BJP's commitment to women and Nari Shakti gets called out is if you look at, for example, what happened with the women wrestlers who essentially accused this gentleman who's a BJP MP of sexually harassing them, the head of the wrestling federation. And it took weeks for the police to act, for the government to act. The wrestlers were dragged away when they were protesting. it appeared that the government, the party was actually protecting this gentleman because he was an MP.
Well, I'd like to again give my point of view in this. I think, in the sports ecosystem, there has historically been a lot of, let's say, ups and downs and a lot of complaints against, these kind of behavior, perhaps molestation, less respect being given to women, etc. But this particular case, I would say that it was overplayed, it was hyped up, and maybe the demonstrations were certainly done in such a way to disrupt the entire national ecosystem, I believe. So I have a reason to believe that it was overplayed perhaps, and the investigation of course was initiated. It's like, I would like to say, it's something like the farmers protests. At times we don't know why things happen, certain things can be planted, certain things can be orchestrated. So it could be one of those, but I think the investigation and all that was properly done.
Well, these are Olympic medal winning champions that were protesting.
Well, I wouldn't say that they are also immune to pressure or immune to inducements. So anything can be, that is my point of view, as I said, So the world may see it from one side, just like the farmer protests, we know why it is being done. There's always a section of society that wants to present itself in a different way. So I would say that it's just one of those blots on perhaps our mismanagement. We should have dealt with it very well.
Okay, at least that's a fair admission. What about the question of the release of the convicts who were accused of the gang rape of Beti Bachao in Gujarat? This was something that was done under the BJP government in Gujarat. The Home Ministry signed off on it. I mean, of course, the Supreme Court had to finally step in and sort of redress it. But you don't find it shocking that, two governments, center and state, both BJP, were okay with the release of these men?
See, the point is, you have picked up those stories that are against my government. That's all I can say. There's a whole bunch of stories like, why don't you talk about Sandesh Kali today? I think this is a hot topic. What we're talking about is past. And there have been discussions, debates, and a whole bunch of things that happened. But why don't we speak about the current issue of why my government is trying to protect women, but there is someone else who's trying to obstruct justice to women. So that is the current hot topic. I think maybe you should speak about it.
No, because we're talking about the track record of the BJP government. That's why I'm asking you these questions.
Yeah. So as I said, there are a few things that perhaps are inflated and presented in a different way, and in that case, of course, we had very less role. I mean, the government took its thing, and the court again came out and of course delivered justice, if you believe so. So let that happen. It can be, there are some of those things that always happen when you lead a big complex country. Things are bound to go wrong. India is not an easy country. We are the most populous and highly complex, layered. So things will at times also disturb us.
Lastly, you feel that overall women voters are, traditionally it's been the Congress which used to draw more women voters. Congress also had, women leaders like Indira Gandhi and so on. You see a shift now, women voters increasingly drawn towards the BJP?
Absolutely. I mean, there is definitely a shift towards BJP. In fact, we see that across sections of society, women have historically voted for us actually. And even today I see that. If you typically see how the national integration happened, the Northeast being integrated, you talk to anyone today, I mean, they are just chanting Modi. So women are shifting and they will continue to do so, and there are some who might not openly say they are with my party, but I think when it comes to the ballot paper, they will write our name. So it's very clear.
Thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for talking to us and giving us your take on the current situation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for calling me.